Hello there, Commonwealth from here, and we have finally reached a time where it makes sense to talk about the Zelda 40th anniversary again. As we have seen them in the past, usually waited until a June Direct with recognizing the anniversaries. In 2001 we had Oracle games, in 2006 we had Twilight Princess of course, 2011 was Ocarina of Time 3D and Skyward Sword, in 2016 we had first Princess HD and then the full marketing of Breath of the Wild. In 2021 we had the big blowout, including new trailer for then sequel, now Tears of the Kingdom, plus of course Skyward Sword HD, and that begs the question, will Nintendo bring the goods for Zelda in this 40th anniversary? Because it could be bigger and grander than any one we have seen to date when we think about it. Because Zelda is in many ways at a crossroad. It's going beyond games, and that is something we haven't really been in apart from books and, merchandising. And the Zelda movie is a very clear example. Nintendo is going to try to replicate the success of the Super Mario animated movies with the live-action Zelda movie. I think we're definitely gonna hear something about this movie in this next Nintendo Direct. Question is just how much we're gonna hear about it, because Nintendo Directs are game-focused, but with the Super Mario 40th anniversary, they started off actually with the Super Mario Galaxy movie. It could be a possibility where they actually start with the Zelda movie in a June Direct and then just follow up with other Zelda announcements. Recognition of the new release date, as Miyamoto went out himself and said, hey, this is Miyamoto, he doesn't have any social channels, so he uses Nintendo's official Twitter account to announce any updates on the projects that he's working on. So in that case, the Legend of Zelda movie, which is now coming out on April. What do we have next then? Well, it could be other stuff tied to The Legend of Zelda. One rumor that has been going around is that the theme park could be announced here, and then getting over to games, where what is the game that will be brought up? That is Ocarina of Time Remake. Question is this what they are starting with? There are other options as well. You could go for Zelda Maker, you could go for a bunch of other games really. It could even be updates to Nintendo Switch Online, where GameCube has two options still. You have Four Swords Adventures, a multiplayer Zelda, Twilight Princess, which is turning 20 years old this year. I know most would have preferred a 4K version. Question is just if they will announce it here or not. That leaves us with Ocarina of Time, the big revival of 3D Zelda remakes, right after we finished somewhat remastering them with the Switch 2 editions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. And the way I see it, I think it is a possibility. After what happened with Star Fox, we can't really ignore it anymore. We just have to realize that Nate has gotten information. He knows pretty much when the timing is for this holiday this year. And yeah, it's just a question of art style to avoid a little bit of the controversy that we have seen with Star Fox, and making sure that the game remains the game that is beloved, but modernized with better camera controls, with some features like loading screens being gone in most areas, minus dungeons, with some new content added, mostly based on cut content, so that you finally get a complete and full version of Ocarina of Time. There are many options when it comes to graphics, obviously, something we highlighted in our video as well, and we need to be aware that this can go many different ways. Nate hasn't pointed at all to what art style this is. He's only said that this is not going to be a Miitopia of Ocarina of Time 3D. It is a full-on remake, and that means that a lot of things could have changed, including the art style. Just a question of what we're getting, and it's about time that we get to see this game. It isn't just about this game, it's about having the knowledge that 3D Zelda games will be remade in a new way. So after Ocarina of Time Majora's Mask, possibly already on Nintendo Switch 2, just later in the life cycle, and then later down the line, probably not on the Switch 2, The Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, eventually also Skyward Sword on a later system. But speaking of Skyward Sword, a Switch 2 edition isn't beyond the realm of possibility for Skyward Sword, but I'm sitting more with a feeling that we're ending up with a free upgrade, which, let's be honest, makes more sense in the style of Link's Awakening, Echoes of Wisdom last year. On the other side, we also saw Nintendo Switch 2 editions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where you have to pay for the upgrades, and 3D Zelda is a little bit murky here, unlike 2D Zelda. We need to still see the precedent of a 3D Zelda game getting a free upgrade. Even if Ocarina of Time ends up being that feared $80 physical, $70 digital game, having Skyward Sword getting a free upgrade could be a way of leaning into it and justifying it. And then we are celebrating the 40th anniversary of not Ocarina of Time, not Skyward Sword, not other 3D Zeldas. Yes, Skyward Sword is turning 15 years this year, but at the same time, top-down Zelda needs to also have a presence. And even though I feel it's too soon to have a reveal of the next top-down game from Grezzo, I think that's going to be saved for next year. The possibility of a Zelda maker is more enticing than ever before. And the same goes with adding maybe a Zelda Battle Royale with what we saw with Super Mario 35 during the pandemic. How far can you get through Zelda 1 pretty much? Actually, that could be a very fun challenge. And speaking of next open-air Zelda game, we have gone 3 years now since Tears of the Kingdom, which means that we should be at that stage where we get the reveal of the next open-air Zelda game, seeing what happened with from Breath of the Wild to Skyward Sword, what we've seen from Wind Waker to Twilight Princess, what we saw from Ocarina of Time to Majora's Mask, and so on. The only exception from that rule was from Twilight Princess to Skyward Sword, where we went 3.5 years before we saw any gameplay of the next game. But we saw a teaser already in 2009, which was, 2.5 years after Twilight Princess, so we knew that a new Zelda game was in development, and we saw kind of the artistic direction and characters of that game already. So the feeling I'm sitting with is that if we're getting a reveal of the next open-air Zelda game, it might be a little bit different than what we would expect. It could just be concept art. It could just be the direction, or just Eiji Aonuma coming up and saying that we are developing the next open-air Zelda game, and nothing beyond that. It could just be another 2019 for what we know, which would be great, because then we know that there is a new Zelda game coming. We don't want any release date, of course. We want them to develop in peace and quiet. And then when they are ready, I think the marketing cycle can be different. Could also wait to 2027, of course. But if you have a new 2D Zelda game coming out that year, I think already announcing next open-air Zelda game might be a good strategy, especially if Ocarina of Time Remake is first in the holiday. Then I don't think the reveal of the next open-air game, which is years away, is going to impact Ocarina of Time Remake anyway, because we know that we'll be getting 3D remakes in between these open-air games. Secrets of the Zonai and the Minoru amiibo are still not out 2 years after we got Masterworks Tears of the Kingdom. They could be holding off even talking about the next open-air Zelda game. We have a new Zelda movie, because we have Ocarina of Time Remake, because we might have smaller Zelda things. I think we're gonna get a Triforce in this. There's a possibility of Age of Imprisonment getting DLC, as Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity got it, but it really depends on whether Nintendo wants to continue with Tears of the Kingdom. When we know there's no sequel to this game, they probably want to go fresh. If they are waiting with the next open-air Zelda game, we're both getting Secrets of the Zonai and the Minoru amiibo, a DLC could make sense. And then what would that DLC be? Well, one is playable Ganondorf, since he wasn't on in Age of Calamity. The interesting way with Age of Imprisonment is that it ends with Ganondorf sort of defeating Rauru in the final gameplay sequence, not counting the battle of the constructs on the surface and in the sky. A Ganondorf route could actually work really well, since he is in the shadows. He could be absolutely there and pretending like he is on the side of Rauru even, because we know there was a time skip there, and that is potential DLC territory for Age of Imprisonment. That is a possibility we shouldn't disclose, and paid DLC could even be before Ocarina of Time Remake. If this is the final year for Tears of the Kingdom, you better squeeze that lemon to get it out as soon as possible. The moment a new open-air Zelda game is revealed, it's over. It's literally over, because all attention is going to move over to that. And Nintendo knows it. That's why it might be why they don't want to reveal it at this stage yet, because they want Ocarina of Time Remake to shine. They want Tears of the Kingdom to have its final shine, and then after you've gotten through that, it makes more sense to bring out the next big thing, the new exclusive for the Nintendo Switch 2. By bringing out Eiji Aonuma, what Shigeru Miyamoto did when introducing Star Fox. He might have a presence both in the start and towards the end of this Direct. It really depends on what Nintendo can end the next Nintendo Direct with. But what do you think? Do you think that Zelda's 40th anniversary's time has finally come? in June? Or do you think that we are waiting even further than that? Because we all know it depends on the general Nintendo Direct. When we get that one, we're likely to see a reveal of the Zelda game of 2026 and also Zelda's 40th anniversary. Sound off in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell, and last but not least, a big thanks to you for watching and to all our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons. Special shoutouts go to our heroes, Cheryl, Garrett Hoy, Holly Wolf and Gintar. You rock, and please enjoy these awesome videos.